Trippie Redd just released his newest album, Mansion Musik, and this is a 25 track, 77-minute long album. So there is just a lot of different tracks here. And of course, something like this long, isn't going to be perfect, but I don't think this album is good at all. I think it's actually kind of terrible. He kind of goes for this dark trap vibe that I feel like doesn't work, and he kind of tries to rip off these like Playboy Cardi, and he tries to take from like the underground. And while Trippy has kind of always been in that style, like the dark trap style, I feel like it doesn't work because the people he works with are either making these super generic dark trap beats, or they're trying to take from like the underground and all these like other producers, which Trippy I feel like doesn't really work on. Either way though, I feel like this album just isn't good. There's a lot of mixing parts that I didn't like, and I just think overall this is just a super underwhelming album. And with something that's 25 songs long and 77 minutes long, you can't hit on every single song. And I feel like because a lot of these songs are so generic, it just compounds when you're hearing the song after song after song that are really similar and just don't do anything special. But let's go track by track. Mansion Musik, I like the dark vibe from the production. Trippie's flow is cool, nothing special, and I feel like it doesn't really fit the beat well. This song's beat gets so boring after literally a minute and 30 seconds, as neither Trippie or the beat feel like they make any changes over the entire song. There's also like a 30-second outro, which sucks. Atlantis, the beat has kind of a pretty similar darkish vibe, and Trippie sounds pretty bored on his verse, but kind of ups the energy with his ad-libs. Keith's voice sounds weirdly mixed compared to Trippie's. It sounds like they have weird effects on his voice. Keith's rhymes are cool, but the continuation of his verse doesn't sound good. Psycho, Trippie again just sounds so bored on the verse. The production is okay, follows the exact same type as the two before. I hate Future's flow at the beginning of the verse. It's so slow and forced. The chorus is so boring and repetitive, but not in an infectious way. Trippie's last verse is a little bit more interesting, where he takes a screaming voice and brings some energy into the song. I do like Future's second verse. He actually sounds, really good on this one. Fully Loaded, don't like the beat. It sounds like it was kind of sped up too much. It sounds like they just put that TikTok 1.3 times speed on it, and it just sounds weird. Future's voice doesn't sound good either because the beat is just terrible. I hate the beat on this song. People said the snippet was good. The beat is terrible in my opinion. The 808s move way too fast for this song, and Lil Baby's verse is absolutely terrible. He's incomprehensible and sounds terrible. Nightcrawler, I don't like Juice WRLD's voice, and I feel like his verse is terrible. It just sounds so boring. It's so like generic, and I feel like he doesn't fit the song at all. And I feel like the beat is terrible when he tries to use his vocals to hit the high notes, and the chorus is just so bad. Trippie actually sounds really good on his verses. I feel like his flow sounds great over the beat, but it goes back to Juice WRLD's terrible chorus. I don't know how anyone liked Juice WRLD's part on this song. It just does not sound good. Van Helsing, Trippie's voice is not on the beat at all, and it sounds random. You either concentrate on Trippie's voice or the beat, because the hits on the 808s do not line up with Trippie's voice at all. I like the production though. It is kind of solid besides that. Dark Brotherhood, I like how Trippie sounds on the song. The production is pretty solid. Some lines are cringy. I do like Lil Baby's verse on this one, and his verse kind of flows right back in Trippie's chorus. Free Rio, the beat again sounds a little too sped up for Trippie's voice, and Trippie uses some weird voice inflections that sound terrible with the Lil Ho parts. He has the Big Bird sound effect, which just sounds crazy on this album. The song has some crazy sound effects like Tango Down, and then there's a sneeze sound effect. The song is just so bad, but in a funny way. Crazy Train, the production is interesting on this one, and I like the hard rocking guitars in the background, but Trippie's flow and voice isn't interesting at all, and the chorus is so boring and repetitive. They totally turned down the beat for Travis's verse, which is really interesting, and it sounds stupid because you can basically just hear Travis's vocals with almost nothing in the background. Muscles, the beat is pretty generic, and Trippie sounds solid on it, but just an okay song, nothing special. Little Dirk's verse is also okay, but nothing amazing. Goodfellas, the beat again sounds sped up. Trippie at least sounds interesting and fun to listen to during the middle of the song. Some Trippie's rhymes just sound weird and don't work at all. Nardo Wick actually sounds really solid on the song, as I really feel like he fits the dark vibe. He just sounds like he's going to murder someone. Killionaire, another generic beat. I do like how Trippie sounds over it, as he brings a solid amount of energy. His flow as the song goes on gets a little choppy, and I don't really like it. High Hopes, the beat is really solid, and I think Big 30's verse intertwined with Trippie's is interesting. Trippie's chorus is boring, and Big 30's sounds solid and brings an okay vibe to his song. I feel like his flow is also pretty solid. Die Die, I like the production. It sounds a little bit more energetic, but Trippie's vocals don't sound good at all and just sound weird on the track. Lucky actually sounds really great on it. I do like the feature. I feel like the beat set fits him a lot more than it does Trippie. Who else? The production is solid, but Trippie's lyrics are so boring and generic. The chorus is also just so boring. It doesn't do anything to improve the song. Rich the Kid's verse is okay, and it's really easy to see him on a song like this. And it's weird to see him on a song like this because why would Trippie want Rich the Kid as a feature? Rich the Kid fell off. It's really short and doesn't really add anything to a song like this, though. Biggest Bird, I actually like the chop production on this one. It's surprisingly interesting. The Big Bird sound effect is just so funny and so stupid. Summer's verse also just kind of boring, and the Vanguard tag randomly comes in the middle of Trippie's second chorus. It's super weird. The song isn't terrible, but the production is solid, and I just think Trippie's kind of trying to capitalize off the Big Bird trend. It's super weird. Hideout literally could be one of the most generic beats ever. Trippie sounds pretty good over the beat, and Fiji McIntosh's verse is terrible and does not sound good at all. Witchcraft, another very similar generic beat. The melody is cool, though. Trippie sounds extremely bored on this track. I hate Rilo Rodriguez's voice. He sounds so bad on the track. Toilet Water, the production is actually interesting, and even though I don't really like how Ski Mask has these weird ad-libs at the beginning of the track, they just sound weird, and, it is an interesting song. Ski Mask's verse is interesting, but the toilet flushing sound just throws me so off. The sound effects on this album are actually crazy, and this one sounds terrible on this song. Trippie does sound good on his second verse, though. Pure, another extremely generic beat, but Trippie comes in with a lot more energy. The G Herbo verse does not sound like the rest of the song. Has a rough time transitioning in from Trippie's verse. Rock Out, loved the production on this. It's hard hitting and interesting. Trippie sounds good on this song and flows over his part. The transition from to Keith's verse is weird, and he sounds mixed in weirdly, but the verse kind of works on the song. Armageddon, hate Rob 49's voice and the start of the song. Verse is so repetitive. Hate it, terrible song. None. The production is kind of interesting, but Trippie's chorus sucks and is just super repetitive. The Baby actually sounds good on this song, weirdly, and really flows with the beat on the song. I like Trippie's verses, but because they kind of sound interesting, and I just like his voice on them. Swag Like Ohio, the chorus is so funny because it's Trippie singing Lil B's classic song. I actually surprisingly like Lil B's voice on the production for a little bit, but then it gets too much. Trippie's verse on the song is pretty good. Colors, I love the pre-air production on this song, and Trippie sounds a lot better on the chilled out production and doesn't sound completely generic. The 808s are a little boring, but I love the melody. I don't like Kodak's verse, though. It's just boring, and you can't really make out the lyrics. Overall, this is just such a weird album. There's not really a cohesive sound through it all. Like, there is the dark trap, but then there's all these different verses which do have their own different sounds, and especially when the mixing is so weird on a lot of these tracks. Travis, they totally turned down the beat, and just a lot of these other ones, it's just such a weird vibe, and there's 25 different tracks. It just sounds like this big mishmash of playlists, and while there are some interesting tracks on this, it as a whole really doesn't work at all. And I just think when you have 25 tracks on an album, like, come on, bro. No one's listening to all 25 of these tracks, and they just aren't cohesive at all. Either way, though, this is a terrible album. Probably a 2 out of 10. There's just, there are some redeeming qualities on certain songs, but as a entire piece, it just doesn't work at all.